Hello, everyone. Welcome to Duel of the Takes. Today, we are doing our season finale. Every movie that has won an episode of our show is going to be going head to head in a madness bracket. This is a tough bracket, fellas. This is probably our toughest bracket yet.
And I wouldn't have it any other way.
This is going to be an interesting debate from everybody.
So, our first fight is a ghost story from our A24 Madness bracket up against Blade Runner 2049, the greatest sci-fi film of all time, according to us.
Yeah, we did say that, didn't we?
We sure did, back when we were young and naive 9 months ago.
I like the robot simp, but Jared Leto's in this movie. But A Ghost Story also has that fuck in the suspenders.
Jory, the guy at the party with the suspenders reminds me of you.
Does he actually?
Like, vaguely.
That's the meanest thing anybody's ever said to me.
He kind of reminds me of College Nate.
I don't know if anybody on this panel is a soy enough boy to be compared to that dude. It's an equivalent for me for whenever Jared Leto shows up in Blade Runner 20. It's not going to be the pie scene. It's going to be this dude showing up.
I like the pie scene. As much as it rips off True Blood, it's a great scene.
I don't think we talked about this in the A24 episode. We did a shot-for-shot remake of that pie scene in college.
Josh, do you have footage of that? Because I'd love to put it in the video.
It's also a running joke at this point, so I am going to be Jory Runner 2049.
But for this, I have to go with a ghost story.
I'm with you.
It might be my favorite movie Afterlife. Ghost Story is like a phenomenal film, and I think we need to elevate that over Blade Runner 2049, even though I think both of these movies are masterpieces.
Up next, we've got The Dark Knight versus The Incredibles.
My two favorite superhero movies.
I kind of feel like they're both a little on the overrated side.
Both of them are revolutionary in their own ways.
Fuck it. Incredibles.
We're moving on to the Harry Potter fight. The winner of our best modern blockbuster, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, versus the best Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
I'm sticking with Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yeah, for me, it's Sorcerer's Stone. I like my Harry Potter movies to be in color, thank you.
Everything I like about Harry Potter started really with Sorcerer's Stone. Like when I think of Harry Potter, like I think of like Sorcerer's Stone.
Sorcerer's Stone is really good, but there's a reason that people still say Azkaban's the best.
Yeah, it's because of Alfonso Cuarón. How did they accidentally get a Kino machine like Alfonso Cuarón to direct Harry Potter 3 of all things?
Up next, Spider-Man 2 versus Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
You don't have to watch Temple of Doom to get to the point in Indiana Jones to watch The Last Crusade as you do with Spider-Man.
In terms of the story, you could start with Last Crusade.
Yeah, you could, but why would a first-time viewer ever?
I mean, the beginning of Last Crusade is pretty much an Indiana Jones prequel. The first 15 minutes with River Phoenix, I think, are awesome. That movie has a really solid 3-act structure that I can't really say the same for Spider-Man 2. I'm gonna say it. The train sequence is cool and all, but once they, like, the New Yorkers take off his mask and carry him like he's Jesus, it's some big Man of Steel energy, and I kind of don't... It's really cringy.
I don't think so. I think it's really good.
I don't know about
Nah, I love that scene all the way through.
Man of Steel isn't that bad, Josh. Calm down.
I do appreciate that entire trilogy where it feels like New York is an actual supporting character, unlike like later superhero movies where the city's just kind of there.
I think I gotta go with Spider-Man 2 now. I've switched my vote.
There it is.
We've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 up against Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring.
Such a meme, but I'm voting Guardians.
I'm also voting Guardians.
Wait. Alden, you were the biggest critic of Guardians 2 in that MCU episode.
Yep.
And you like it more than Fellowship of the Ring?
No, but I have more fun watching it. And I have a feeling most of these matchups, it's going to be which one I enjoy watching more rather than the one I think is better.
Is it secret? Is it safe?
I love the part where Gandalf like yeets like Samwise Gamgee from outside the window and just tosses him on the table.
Yeah, very similar to like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies too in terms of tone. Like there's still a lot of like humor and bits of comedy within this like epic story.
Peter Jackson also coming from that like horror movie background.
Yeah, they're very similar trilogies, which is really odd.
And I have a feeling that the MCU is going to continue to pump out shit that's derivative of Guardians.
I was voting Guardians for the meme, but I do think Lord of the Rings should move on in this situation.
Another great fantasy movie, our best DreamWorks movie, Shrek, up against Tim Burton's actual best movie, Ed Wood.
This one's annoying.
Shrek versus one of my favorite movies of all time.
One of my favorite movies of all time versus Ed Wood.
Alden also watched Ed Wood today.
I did.
Oh, what did you think of Ed Wood, Alden?
It was actually a lot of fun, which I didn't fully expect from that.
I think it's Tim Burton's funniest movie.
Yeah, maybe.
I think these movies are both very good.
How they handle Bella Lugosi in Ed Wood, I think that is one of the greatest like supporting characters put to film, and it touches base on like the real life film history element a little bit, but isn't as in your face as films like Mank or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's like this self-celebratory thing. I think that it's really cool. We got to see the life of a director that was always critically panned. And I think that Ed Wood stands out so much within that little niche subgenre of movies about movies or movies about filmmakers. Just from Tim Burton's direction and his stylization, I do think Shrek was a game changer for CG animation. And I specifically like that it's very kind of counterculture in its stance against like Disney and poking fun at its tropes.
It just got voted into Congress.
I personally think that Ed Wood is a more underappreciated movie that I'd rather elevate, and everyone knows Shrek. I think Shrek's cultural impact is going to be dominant no matter what.
Shrek is love, I say. Shrek is life.
Every DC film ranked, which was a mess of an episode. Josh, do you remember that episode?
No.
Well, we got Batman 89 up against Toy Story 2.
So let's all wish Nathaniel R. Martin a Merry Christmas by all collectively voting Toy Story 2.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
I was going to do it anyways. Merry Christmas, Nate.
Oh, thanks. This is actually coming out after Christmas, so Happy New Year, guys. I'm glad that Toy Story 2 is moving on. We've got Rocky, the original, up against Pokemon, the first movie. I'm a big fan of underdogs, so for that, I have to go with Pokemon.
I also am going Pokemon.
I was joking.
I'm not.
As much as I want to vote for Pokemon, like Rocky has to take it here.
Half the panel is from Pennsylvania. Of course, I'm voting Rocky.
A Goofy movie, which won our Disney Renaissance ranked, up against Pulp Fiction, which won our Tarantino ranking.
Before any of us say anything, let's hear Nate's full take on why a Goofy movie is better than Pulp Fiction.
As you can hear in our Tarantino ranking, if you guys haven't seen that one, I highly recommend it. Some of our most heated debates to date. There's always a contention for what his best movie is. Everyone can have a different opinion on what their favorite is. And I do think that Pulp Fiction has one of the greatest screenplays ever written, and I think that it's a really ambitious film and really set a precedent for what indie films could be or what lower budget movies could be, distributed by Miramax through the 90s. But what I find more impressive is when a studio takes a big risk. And I don't know if it was a risk to make a Goof Troop movie, but it was a risk to make a Goof Troop movie the way that they did. At the height of their powers, Disney was like, yeah, let's just have some like B studio put together a little Goof Troop movie. And what it has is a really, really, really great script. Maybe not as great as the Pulp Fiction script, but close. A lot of great comedic set pieces, but also a really touching father-son story that I honestly think is still unparalleled to this day. I think a Goofy movie continues to get better with age, as its 90-isms tropes are almost more of a positive thing to go back to rather than something that just horribly dates the film. I think specifically for millennials, a Goofy movie is a generation-defining movie in the same way that Breakfast Club is for Gen Xers. And I think that a Goofy movie will only get more appreciation over time. Whereas I feel like Pulp Fiction's appreciation has kind of peaked. I know there's still like the joke that film bros love the shit out of Pulp Fiction, like it's untouchable, but at the end of the day, it's going down in history as one of Tarantino's best films and one of the films that was a catalyst for 90s independent films and really started a lot of trends in Hollywood. But I've got to go with a Goofy movie.
See, Nate had me until he said millennials, and now I'm voting for Pulp Fiction.
Well, I'm very grateful a Goofy movie's going on to the next round. SpongeBob SquarePants the movie up against the X-Men ranking winner, the film that
Greatest superhero film of all time.
Yes.
film that almost beat The Dark Knight in our third episode of the show.
Disgusting.
Well, what's the take here? SpongeBob or X?
All right. Does X-Men have Ocean Man?
No, my enjoyment of both of these movies go beyond memes, and I love X-Men Days of Future Past. I love the SpongeBob movie as well. It's a movie from my childhood that I don't think that I'll ever completely separate from, but X-Men Days of Future Past, as I have famously posited, is the greatest superhero movie of all time, and I'm not backing down from that either. So I gotta give it to X-Men Days of Future Past, especially since I feel like it still doesn't have the respect that it deserves.
We've come so far with this X-Men Days of Future Past agenda. I can't back down now. I have to continue this.
Just can't side with X-Men.
I made some of you guys watch this movie for the very first time. Suspiria, my favorite horror movie of all time, up against the winner of our John Carpenter top 10, The Thing.
I think Suspiria is a great film. I cannot put it over The Thing in my head.
What Suspiria brings to the table is a really, really good soundtrack by a band called Goblin. A really, really great, like color contrast heavy cinematography and color palette. Production design's also awesome. I love the use of like miniatures and these like really high set walls. There's a lot of really, really cool shots in Suspiria, but holistically as a movie, John Carpenter's The Thing's a masterpiece. We've got Stanley Kubrick's The Shining up against Star Wars: A New Hope.
I don't know what kind of person it's going to make me look like, but I'm voting Star Wars and I'm not looking back.
I'm really about to betray Stanley Kubrick the next 2 rounds.
Josh, his best movie isn't even on here.
You're right, Jory. If Eyes Wide Shut was on here.
Eyes Wide Shut could take it over Star Wars.
Yeah, you're right.
So could Barry Lyndon.
The Shining isn't even like Kubrick's top 5, potentially.
All right, time to disrespect Stanley Kubrick again.
Ratatouille up against Stanley Kubrick's best film, according to our list, 2001: A Space Odyssey. All right, Josh, similar to the Goofy movie round, I want to hear this take.
Okay. I don't see a 2001: A Space Odyssey musical on TikTok right now. I'm just saying.
2001: A Space Odyssey doesn't make me want to build a rocket in my backyard, but Ratatouille makes me want to get in my kitchen and cook.
I've said it many times. Ratatouille is my favorite animated film of all time. I love everything about the movie. I think like it's one of Pixar's top tier films to me. Like when it comes to characters and theming, I think Pixar just knocked it out of the park with this movie. Yes, 2001: A Space Odyssey is a masterpiece, not only as a movie, just in the history of cinema in general, but I think Ratatouille is a lot more inviting. It's a movie you could practically show anybody, not to actually use TikTok as a point, but I think this whole Ratatouille a musical meme has really showed that like Ratatouille is a very like big movie for not only our generation, but for anybody else. And as much as I hate it, 2001: A Space Odyssey has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle when it comes to people going back to watching it. We had that really shitty 13 Reasons Why scene where the guy gets bored in the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it sucks that's where 2001 is, but compared to Ratatouille, it's something that's a lot more inviting to me, even though 2001 is a masterpiece.
I can't side with Josh. Ratatouille it's probably in my top 5 Pixar movies. I don't like it nearly as much as I like A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I'm really glad this isn't Wall-E versus 2001.
A French chef that happens to be a rat versus a tail in space is very hard to compare, but I'm gonna have to go Space Odyssey.
Interesting how you undersold both of them. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable going with Ratatouille on this one, not just for the meme, but just because like I appreciate 2001 for what it is. Again, it isn't my favorite Kubrick movie. It's probably like number 3 for me. It's still very high up there because like there's no denying what it is.
So I could see Ratatouille taking it here. Up next, we got the winner of our music biopics, Walk the Line, and the highest movie on our Rankin Bass tier list, Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
All right, well, if someone picks it, I'm gonna shoot them. So
I'm picking Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Bro, I'm not picking Johnny Cash over Santa Claus.
I think that Santa Claus is Coming to Town is a movie you have to watch once a year. Walk the Line, it's a great movie, but how many times am I going to go back to it in my life?
You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out.
but I don't know. Like the first one is a ghost story versus Incredibles.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. A ghost story.
A ghost story?
The Incredibles.
Incredibles.
All right, we'll just debate the ties.
Fuck it. Ghost story.
All right, no tie.
There it goes.
All right, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban versus Spider-Man 2. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Harry Potter.
That's almost unanimous.
Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring versus Ed Wood. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
Ed Wood.
Okay, I'll be the lone fellowship vote.
No. Fellowship of the Ring. It's a tie. I thought about it for more than that brief countdown, and
Yeah, I feel like just like the technical proficiency that goes into Fellowship of the Ring makes it one of the most impressive movies of like the last 20 years of this millennium, really.
But now we get to a point in a bracket where I'm like, okay, these are the movies I think are the best. Lord of the Rings to you, Nate, is not even the best Lord of the Rings movie. Can you really vote for that?
fuck, you're right. Toy Story 2 versus Rocky. Ready?
This is gonna be weird.
3, 2, 1. Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2.
Rocky.
All right, a Goofy movie versus X-Men: Days of Future Past. A Goofy movie.
X-Men.
A Goofy movie.
X-Men Days of Future Past.
I would say that a Goofy movie is definitely better than Logan.
I mean, these are really, really, really hard to compare.
And I think that the execution of both of these generations, of both of the eras of this one franchise together, hasn't really been done before. And I doubt it's going to be done like again. I know that the new Spider-Man movie is going to make an attempt at it, but I sincerely doubt that it's going to execute it as well as X-Men Days of Future Past already did.
You know, that's actually a very good point. I'm excited to see how they try to incorporate that and how it holds up against this. Because I agree with you. That is the strongest element of this film.
I think the relationship between like X1 and X2 like holding up as well as it does, and as good as First Class has also held up by, as long as those stay as acclaimed as they are and people appreciate them for what they are as much as they do, I think there will always be an audience for this one as well.
I'm sold.
Beast.
We've got John Carpenter's The Thing versus George Lucas's Star Wars. The Thing.
Star Wars.
Jory, what's your vote?
I really don't know.
I'm gonna go with Star Wars, but somebody could sell me.
All right, I'm gonna vote for The Thing then, just because I feel like this will be interesting.
I think The Thing knocks everything out of the park, and I think that George Lucas is still trying to fix this movie for some reason.
These are the two sides of the sci-fi coin, is the way that I see it. It's The Thing being the more, I don't want to say like thought heavy, but it's more using a sci-fi concept to represent something that we can relate to, rather than Star Wars using sci-fi concepts to create another world.
What could win me into the favor of A New Hope here is if they released A New Hope, the original cut of just the first Star Wars, because then I could compare what that underdog, what that hidden gem, or what that original product was directly to something that I find as charming as The Thing.
Yeah, the most charming aspects of A New Hope, you almost like, they're almost inaccessible in the modern age, which is a real shame.
They're hidden by CG.
Would make sense for The Thing to move on.
Ratatouille versus Santa Claus is Coming to Town. 3, 2, 1. Ratatouille.
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 We've got A Ghost Story up against Spider-Man 2.
Very similar films.
I'm gonna go with A Ghost Story because the relationship in that film is better than Tobey Maguire and Kristen Dunst.
You know what? You got me.
A Ghost Story is just the gift that keeps on giving. Bracket is so cursed now. We've got Ed Wood up against Toy Story 2.
I'm voting Toy Story 2.
I'm gonna vote Ed Wood because, like,
I'm with Josh.
yeah, I think Ed Wood is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best films about filmmaking.
If you could show just about anyone on the planet the movie Toy Story 2, and they're going to be like, this is a fucking great movie. But I think that there are people that I've even showed the movie Ed Wood to that have felt alienated by it because it is so weird. It's this black and white movie that's made with like a great cast and everything, but it's a story about this like niche B movie director that not too many people know about. It's very much a movie for people like me, and I think that's the reason why I love it so much.
The best Pixar movies already in the final four, Nate.
Toy Story 2 is so broad. It's a family movie that can appeal to anybody who sees it.
As much as I like Toy Story 2, I think it's a great animated film. Outside of the Jesse scene, though, I don't know what's actually like attaching that to me.
That I think what Jory's saying about Woody trying to find acceptance in the Roundup gang, and essentially it's a movie about the importance of and value of friendship over, you know, preservation and you know, essentially the Roundup gang is a cult. I mean, think about it. Jesse is someone who's been emotionally manipulated in the past. Bullseye is someone with a disability, a toy with the cognitive ability of a dog, and being manipulated by this evil prospector voiced brilliantly by Kelsey Grammer. Kind of this cult leader of sorts, this charismatic, friendly appearing prospector who turns to be this kind of narcissistic and maniacal character who really wants to ascend to immortality by being put in a museum behind a display case, never to be played with or appreciated. It's kind of a lot like the Heaven's Gate cult in a way.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely a theme of friendship.
I can't believe you just got Josh to say, yeah, that's true to what you just said.
I mean, I was talking on my ass, but that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
That's staying in.
Yeah, keep that shit in. That was good. Josh, I feel like your willingness to accept what Nate said shows where your heart is here.
Josh, should I talk about the duality of man between the two different buzzes? Because I will.
Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to budge you guys, but
But yeah,
Are we stuck on a split?
Well, let's come back to it. X-Men Days of Future Past versus John Carpenter's The Thing.
X-Men Days of Future Past.
Entire theming of Days of Future Past is the legacy of the older movies. This is a climax to the history of the X-Men movies.
And the X-Men movies, whether you like it or not, are as important to the superhero genre as like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Like these are the movies that launched what would become then the MCU.
Fuck. I hate that you're right, but you're right.
Like, come on, this movie is not just going to be completely forgotten. It might not have the same cultural relevancy, but let's be honest, it doesn't have the cultural relevancy it deserves right now. I think that there's a greater chance of it coming back than it has a chance of, like...
If it does get forgotten, wouldn't we want to elevate it? Because it is going to go down as then one of the more underrated movies of this oversaturated era that we're going to look back on a little more fondly.
Alden muted his mic so he could scream into a pillow right now.
We need to do a commentary of this movie in season 2.
I don't know. I just feel like the people that talk about X-Men Days of Future Past that aren't you guys don't talk about it as highly as you do, Jory. It's like
That's what I mean. It's a duel of the takes staple.
They have their eyes wide shut to the fact that X-Men Days of Future Past is the best one.
it makes more sense to go with X-Men Days of Future Past here.
Okay, because that happened, Toy Story 2 is going into the Final Four.
I don't even want Toy Story 2 in the Final Four, Josh.
I made a sacrifice.
Wait, so we're just screwing over Alden twice?
It's fine.
That's how this goes.
Honestly, no, I'm defaulting. I think Ed Wood, in the way that this is going, Ed Wood needs to move on.
Okay.
This was the biggest yo of Duel of the Takes season 1.
I don't like that the right side of the bracket is both for Josh.
This whole Final Four is all Josh, to be honest.
Honestly, that's true, but still.
These are all Kuba's Kino picks.
A Ghost Story is definitely a fresh and interesting take on the paranormal, and I kind of like the way that it went. I like the aspect of timelessness in it. A Ghost Story tells a lot with so little dialogue, whereas Ed Wood is all dialogue. These are very different films. I honestly wouldn't mind if either goes forward.
The Ghost Story is a fantastic piece of art, but it's a feature-length art display to me. It's like watching a painting. And I think Ed Wood is a fucking like movie. Like, I don't know. This isn't really an argument to me.
Calling A Ghost Story a painting is a very good way to put it.
I feel like, yeah, Ghost Story in its presentation is niche, but it might show somebody something that maybe they hadn't considered before. And I do think that its theme is as universal as you could get. It's about dealing with death and the afterlife and what goes on after you're gone.
I can't thank A24 enough for bringing us stuff like A Ghost Story.
When we talk about Duel of the Takes history too, we had our closing titles watch A Ghost Story for the first couple months. This was a movie we recommended to literally anybody.
And I didn't watch it until today.
I think it's really dope if A Ghost Story is in the final 2.
All right, gut instinct. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
X-Men.
Yo, I did not expect that shit to go that way.
I'm glad I didn't need a vote in that. What a final 2.
Okay, so quoting Nate on his previous argument, very nice like art piece, but X-Men Days of Future Past is more of a movie. Like you got the superheroes, that's cool. You got like a ton of cool action and like witty one-liners and stuff. It's way better. I feel like anybody who sees this movie would fucking love it, and people would be like, "Why the fuck isn't anybody talking at Ghost Story? What's that soy boy with suspenders talking about? And why don't I care?"
I really liked his dialogue.
That was like a duel of the takes monologue in the middle of the movie. I liked it.
Honestly, yeah.
Sober take for you. X-Men Days of Future Past is better than a Ghost Story.
This is more of what I'd like to see from the film industry, and you're giving me the most fucking cliche where the film industry's heading. So fuck it, a Ghost Story.
Cliche? What's cliche about X-Men Days of Future Past? Yeah, that's because it was trailblazing. That's because it was so fucking
It's a superhero movie made after the year 2008. It's not that trailblazing.
just because it finally solved the problem of merging eras in films that were finally becoming too.
Guess what? Comic books have been doing that for fucking 40 years at this point, Jory. Just because they brought it to film one.
Didn't Star Trek also do it before Days of Future Past?
Jory, Star Trek did it first.
Star Trek is for fucking nerds, Nate.
So is X-Men.
X-Men is for fucking nerds, Jory.
I really love a Ghost Story, but we're in the end game now. X-Men Days of Future Past. I'm on that team.
Hell yes.
This was our Avengers Endgame, okay? This was
No?
This was no one's Avengers Endgame.
This was our Avengers Endgame.
what other superhero collective movie was just as satisfying?
Avengers Endgame.
At least the time travel in X-Men Days of Future Past works and makes sense.
Talking about a Ghost Story and X-Men Days of Future Past, you want to compare X-Men Days of Future Past to other movies in its tired genre. It's not a valid argument. Just because it's the best superhero movie doesn't make it one of the best movies of the last 20 years. A Ghost Story is.
And I feel like Josh and I's take that this is the best one has to be valid in some sort of capacity because we are fans of that genre.
I am also a fan of that genre, but again, it's one genre that's been extremely popular over the past 20 years. That doesn't make it the best movie of the last 20 years.
I mean, it's notable.
Let's talk about Endgame. Who had the better time travel? Days of Future Past. Who had the more iconic characters? Days of Future Past. Who had the more consistent story? Days of Future Past.
I think a Ghost Story is better time travel than X-Men Days of Future Past.
Was it time travel? It was kind of moving in a loop,
That's a form of travel.
I suppose, but then every movie is a time travel movie. Every movie is moving forward in time.
But when does it loop back around? When you start the movie over?
At the end of the universe and at the rebirth of the universe is at least what I got from Ghost Story. Do I think this is the last movie that Jennifer Lawrence was watchable in? Maybe.
I don't even think she was watchable in this one.
And at the end of a Ghost Story, I want to cry, and at the end of Days of Future Past, I feel like a sigh of like relief that like some of my favorite superhero movies have like a really good ending now.
I feel like you could ask more from X-Men Days of Future Past, and you couldn't ask more from a Ghost Story and what it's trying to say and do.
I agree.
Here's a question for a Ghost Story. What the fuck does that note say? Huh? I waited the entire goddamn movie. I think I'm going to say the words. I think I'm going to say that X-Men Days of Future Past is the more crowd-pleasing of these two films.
Everyone I've shown a Ghost Story has appreciated it, and probably, like, I'd say they liked it. Like, that's all you can really ask from an audience. And it's also about half the runtime. And also, like, I feel like if I were just to randomly show someone X-Men Days of Future Past and they weren't familiar with X-Men, they'd be like, wait, why is this guy bald now? What's going on? Why are there two of them? Like,
But yo, that's what I appreciate about Days of Future Past is that like you actually have to watch the movies and grow with the characters, unlike the MCU or other like genres or franchises that tried to like do this type of like movie universe thing. This feels like that scene in The Office where they're all pointing their finger guns at each other.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
We're talking about which is better, X-Men Days of Future Past or a Ghost Story.
X-Men Days of the Future.
Thank you, brother.
That was base.
Nate, don't you dare.
an outside element came in and was our tiebreaker.
I will bring another outside element.
This is like the sponsor movie of Duel to Take season 1. Like when I think of Duel to Take season 1, I'm gonna think of the movie.
X-Men Days of Future Past is the season finale, the best movie we've ever talked about on Duel of the Takes.
Yes, it is.
Hell yeah.
How are we gonna up ourselves next season? Find out. If you haven't already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it the most. And we will be back sometime in mid-January.
2021.